So I'm really thrilled to welcome back Isa Jones to Pearls of Wisdom. Let me tell you just a little bit about Isa. Isa has been educating and inspiring people to live with more passion, self-confidence, and joy for over 20 years. Through her workshops, private practice, and public speaking engagements, she spreads her powerful vision of sexual health and vitality. Isa is the founder and owner of the Scottsdale Center for Sex and Relationship Therapy. She and her team of sex therapists empower individuals and couples to create meaningful relationships rooted in emotional intimacy and fueled by erotic desire. Her areas of specialization include cultivating eroticism in long-term love relationships, helping couples become an erotic team, and helping couples heal and transform their relationships in the aftermath of infidelity. Isa is a licensed marriage and family therapist, MFT supervisor, certified sex therapist, and clinical sexologist. She is the Western Region Director and Arizona State Section Leader for the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists, the international governing body certifying sex therapists. Please help me welcome Isa Jones.
Can we give feedback if it would be okay?
I'm going to turn this off.
So we're going to test the mic. We haven't tested it yet to make sure that you can hear me okay. Is this okay?
Yeah.
That feels good? All right.
You hear it?
No.
Great. And then I'm going to ask also, Jill, if you can help me. I didn't bring a watch and, or a clock, so I'm just floating in space up here.
I'll give you
Could you?
I'll give you
Can you give me a?
And I'll give you a 1 minute.
Your mic needs to be closer to your mouth.
Oh,
If you're gonna
okay,
use
good.
that one. They cannot hear you back here.
Okay.
Thank you. How's that? Is that better?
Little
Higher.
louder.
Oh, okay. Let's try that. This is kind of sexy, like a little bit higher, a little bit to the left. Not quite there yet. Is this okay? Is that, no, I'm talking to the people in the back. Is that okay? Better? All right. Well, have you heard about good enough sex? All right. That's about as good as it's going to get, unless I hold it.
That's good.
Okay.
So you want
15 minutes?
15 minutes?
5 minutes,
Okay.
and 1 minute. Thank you. All right. We've been through a lot already. It feels like we've had some time to visit, we've had some snacks, we've learned from, is it Tamara or Tamara? Tamara about branding, which is awesome. That was so fabulous. Thank you. And I love listening to you, Annie. You just get me all excited about being better with money. So thank you. And now we're going to transition into a whole new arena, that of sexuality. So when I enter a new group of people that I've never met before, one of the first things I like to do is introduce myself and then get to know you a little bit. And I recognize that sexuality can provoke a lot of different feelings in people. Some of you might be really excited to kind of talk about this. Others of you might feel some anxiety. Others of you might be concerned about getting triggered in some way. So I just want to encourage you all to take care of yourselves and let you know that I talk about this every day. And so for me, I like to tell my clients when I first sit down with them that honestly, there's nothing you could do or say that would freak me out or make me feel uncomfortable. But I know that's unusual for people because most of us, and maybe raise your hands if you're like me, and most of us who are raised in this very sex-negative culture and never really got a good sex education, nor empowered role modeling around what sexual health looks like and how to enjoy. In fact, I'll just ask this question. Let's just cut it down. How many of you had conversations with your parents about the importance of sexual pleasure? You did. See, there's always one or two. And this is why I say most of us, because there are a lucky few. So thank you, Sharon Friendly. So I just want to welcome you as you are and really create a comfortable space for us to talk about this. And so as a way of introducing myself, I've actually been in a long-term relationship now for 28 years. I have 3 teenage or young adult age daughters now. And so what I talk about, what I specialize in, is really eroticism in long-term love relationships, because I found it to be a really important ingredient to my relationship. And we tend to kind of do the things that we're interested in and then learn how to make a living out of it if we so choose. So that's kind of my backstory. But I'd like to ask you, think here. Let me just say one more thing. As a sex therapist, I do not have sex with my clients. Some people don't know that, and so I want you to know that I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist who's had very extensive specialized training in sexuality. And just a consumer alert, in the state of Arizona, a couple things. First, sex education doesn't have to be scientifically accurate. Okay? And secondly, in the state of Arizona, there is no licensure around the language of sex therapy, so anyone can call themselves a sex therapist. And so if you are interested in getting really specialized help in this aspect of your life or your relationship, then you want to look for a certified sex therapist. There's a big difference. That means that person has actually received extensive training and isn't going to bring their own biases into the conversation. In fact, the joke is in the DSM, which is the manual, the diagnostic statistical manual that's used for defining mental health illness, back in actually up to the 70s, nymphomaniac was in there. And a nymphomaniac was defined basically by the therapist if they had sex more than the therapist did. So you have to be careful when you're talking about sex that you're talking with somebody who's aware of their biases, this is not gonna impose them onto you.
And don't just find them off casual encounters on Craigslist.
Right, you don't just find them off casual encounters. Unless you're looking for a different type of encounter, then more power to you. So, okay, let's just kind of get some energy in the room. I'm curious to know a little bit about you. What words come to mind when you just think about anticipating talking about sexuality?
Depends on with whom I'm going to have the conversation.
Okay, so right now in this room, in a public setting. Curiosity. What else?
Interesting.
Interesting. No wrong answers here.
No big deal.
No big deal. Energy.
Curiosity.
Curiosity again. Anything else? Any discomfort? What was that? Bring it. Okay. All right. Everybody take off your clothes. Okay. All right. Great. So, in terms of your history and your experience in your own sex lives, I'm curious to know how many of you have experienced a change in your level of motivation or your desire or even your satisfaction over time in a relationship? Just about everybody, okay? How many of you have noticed that with time, and let's say after 1.5 years, 2 years, that the level of interest and satisfaction and fulfillment has gone down? Some of you? You don't have to. By the way, one of the first sexual health principles I like to teach is the difference between compliance and consent. It's a big distinguishing factor. A lot of people who come in and see me with a breakdown of desire come to find that they have been engaging in what I call compliant sex, which is the thing you do because if you don't, your partner will be mad at you, or they'll give you a hard time, or they won't let you go to sleep at night, or there's some negative consequence that will come your way if you don't engage with them sexually. Versus consent, which is, yes, I'm interested. Yes, I want this. Okay, so as I ask these questions, if you don't want to raise your hand, you don't have to. This is all about consent, not compliance. I don't feel compelled. All right, so have any of you experienced an uptick over years of being with the same partner? The sexual relationship has become more enjoyable, more gratifying, more rich? Great. So we've got Sarah again, the one who had Sharon. Oh, Sharon. Thank you, Sharon. The lucky parents in this regard. Okay, and a few others I saw hands going up. Okay, one of the big probably number one presenting complaints that people come to my office with is the breakdown of desire. And so, and this is men and women in today's world. So the most common complaint I'm going to be seeing in my office is, I don't know what happened to my sexual energy. I don't know what happened to my desire for sex. I'm really not that interested in sex anymore. What's wrong with me? The first thing I like to tell them is, where did you get the idea that you should desire sex? We need to back up the truck a little bit here. Because so much of what we've come to think about sexuality, the expectations, what sex is even, has been prescribed by male sexuality. The clitoris wasn't even in medical literature till the 1990s.
Seriously?
Seriously. So here's what I'm saying to you. A few things that are important. Number one, probably didn't get this message, or you weren't taught this, that there are two kinds of desire that exist. One is spontaneous desire, and the other is responsive desire. Both are a thing, both are real. Women's sexuality oftentimes is more responsive in nature, which means I need to have a certain context in place in order for me to feel motivated to be sexual. Okay? So what might some of those things be? Think back into your history. What are some of the things that you notice that contribute to your desire to be sexual? Go ahead.
I need to feel loved and understood.
Beautiful. One of the number one things. I need to feel loved and understood. I need to feel safe with my partner. Okay? Great. What else? Connection. Beautiful. Kind of along those same lines. Connection with my partner. Yeah?
I need to feel good about my body.
Oh, that's another really good one. Yes, number two. I need to feel good about my body. It's really hard to imagine if you don't like this body of yours. It's hard to imagine how somebody else can. And if they do, they're kind of crazy. They kind of don't know what they're looking at, In fact, one of my funny stories I like to tell with this is, if you're the only naked body in the room, you're the hottest thing on the planet. A lot of women don't realize this. But also that, sometimes we underestimate. I think we get really hard on ourselves as women. We compare ourselves oftentimes to these kind of ideal bodies, young bodies, and these are some of the myths that are perpetuated in culture. What is sexy? We tend to think of youth, big boobs, fit bodies, long hair, whatever. So the research is actually really clear on this, and this research has been done over socioeconomic levels, different cultures, even different geographies. That the number one thing that makes a woman's, this was done on heterosexual couples, so it would be interesting in same-sex couples. So unfortunately we don't have enough research on same-sex couples. But the number one thing that makes a woman sexually attractive in her partner's eyes, and this research was her male partner's eyes, is responsiveness. That it's a woman who communicates, there's nowhere else she'd rather be than making love with this partner in this moment.
It's the same.
It's the same. Because why? Think about it. Because why? Because what does that convey to your partner?
That you're present.
You're wanted, you're present, you're desired. And so this whole idea that I have to have perfect boobs, or my butt has too much cellulite, and all these things are going to prohibit me from really being sexy is bananas. I mean, what really makes somebody sexy is confidence. Somebody who likes who they are and enjoys their body, regardless of how it looks, in light or in a mirror. I actually had a couple ones, oftentimes men are more visually stimulated, so they'll get more aroused with visual stimuli, whereas females often track more auditorily, which is why, a lot of visual stimulation men respond to, which also explains when, I'm married to a man, and when I get out of the shower, he can be really turned on. They're like, oh, wow, that's, get over here, baby. And if he gets out of the shower, nothing. It does nothing for me. But if he comes up to me and tells me how beautiful I am, how much he appreciates how hard I work, if he, sends me text messages to say, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you, I'll have a bath ready for you when you get home, which I have a text right now in my purse that says that. When I get home, call me, I'll make a bath. Then I want to open up to this man. It's different. It's different. So spontaneous desire is, I'm kind of in the mood for sex, and I'm just looking for an opening. Literally, I'm just looking for an opening. One of the things that changes though with time in men, and you probably noticed this if you've aged and you've dated men or you've been with somebody over time, is that men's desire actually becomes more responsive as they age. And they don't know that about themselves. They come in and they're like in their 40s and they're saying, I don't know what's wrong, I'm losing my erections, I'm not getting erect because, I don't know, I love my wife, I love my male partner, I love who I'm with, I don't want another relationship, but I don't know what's wrong. And I say, well, have you heard of foreplay? You're gonna need more stimulation as you age. Also, if you're stressed out about money, if you're dissatisfied in your relationship, maybe you're really angry with your partner, then you're gonna have a much harder time getting aroused in your 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s than you would have in your 20s and 30s. When, who cares if I'm stressed out? Who cares if I even know my partner? And so in some ways, it's kind of nice because both of these styles become a little more compatible so you can get more creative together. So spontaneous desire says, sex begins with this state of mind. It's a mental state of desire. I want to have sex. Followed by arousal, which is the physiological state of getting aroused, engorged, lubricated, erect, the body's kind of getting turned on. Followed by orgasm, typically the male's orgasm, if we're in this performance model of sex, and then, we're done. We scored, home run, all these very male kinds of metaphors for sex. So one of the big things I want to change for all of you today, and to maybe talk to your partner about if you're in a sexual relationship, is a new model for sex. So to get out of this stair-step model, what I call the sex as a pass-fail test, foreplay, intercourse, orgasm, and we're done, to what I call sensual energy exchange sex, S-E-X, sensual energy, the second letter, exchange, it's a big X, sex, where it's all about pleasure and connection. Couples who can do this will stay sexually active until they die. Couples who stay bound to this intercourse model, that they have to have, a PVP, penile vaginal penetration is what it's called in the literature, are the ones that trail off. In fact, in heterosexual couples, 85% of those couples in their 50s and above who have sexless relationships now, who are no longer engaging in an active sex life, are in that state because the male partner has withdrawn from sex. See? Because they're no longer getting these reliable, predictable erections they once had, and they don't know what to do about that except for withdraw from sex altogether. Does that make sense? So it's really important to kind of learn some new ways of being sexual together. The other big thing that this does is you can create what I call an erotic sprinkle in the relationship. An energy together where, if your partner comes up and just, tickles you in the back of your neck, you can respond with a momentary acknowledgement of that feels good, honey, and then go back to getting your work done without it feeling like rejection, without it feeling like, if my partner approaches me this way, then we have to get to the bedroom and lock the door and go on a full-blown, intercourse section or, session. So the erotic sprinkle basically gives permission for you to engage each other in ways to feel sexual, to be seen as sexual, to flirt in ways without demands attached to it, without demand for intercourse attached to it. Because what happens and I'll just ask this question. You don't have to answer it out loud, but I'd love to ask this question. I've yet to hear somebody answer it differently. Couples where the breakdown has occurred and they're no longer enjoying this vibrant sex life, I'll ask them, do you ever just like kiss each other the way you used to? Like that really sensual, juicy kind of French kiss. Do you ever just do that on its own? Or if you do that now, is it just kind of what you do, the thing you do 10 minutes before the real thing? Is it like, this means to an end thing that you do before intercourse? Never have I had a client tell me that they still kiss like this as a standalone experience and they've had a breakdown in their sexual relationship. So can we open up these little windows, these little moments where you get to feel, you get to stoke this kind of energy in your relationship. You get to remember what that feels like without it requiring anything else. Just kind of keeping that low burn going. So oftentimes when people come to me and they say, I no longer experience desire, we want to look at a lot of things. There could be biological, hormonal things going on. There could be relational things going on. There could be view of self and body image, getting in the way. But one really important question I like to ask is, A, is it that you've really lost your desire? Or is it that you've lost your desire for the sex you think you can have? Those are two different things. Because most people get into a pattern together where they kind of have, they kind of know what works. They kind of got, 1 or 2 or 4 ways of being together sexually that they do every time. And for most people, particularly women, by the way, we're more connoisseurs. We're very misunderstood sexually. Women are thought to have less desire, but here's how it goes. Women's desire drops rapidly when sex becomes uninteresting. Whereas men can sustain their desire in spite of the sex not being as interesting because it's spontaneous desire. It's not responsive desire. So, I ask, well, what's the kind of sex you might be interested in having? Sensual energy exchange. It might be dancing and grinding. That's sexy. It might be, being flirted with. It might be, here's one of the key governing principles around women's sexuality that most women and men don't appreciate, which is women's sexuality is very narcissistic in a particular way. What really turns women on, and I'll say most women because there's always variations, but what really turns women on is to be the turn on. So we know it's us that you want, not it that you want. And the way we know that is through seduction. And so the minute sex becomes this expectation, this thing we do on Sunday night, this thing that starts this way and goes this way and becomes very safe and predictable and perfunctory, we've lost the erotic dimension of the sex. It's gone. And so that's why it becomes uninteresting. I'd rather check my email or catch up on a Netflix show. Or, what's so great about that? Really, not much. So, very seldom do couples complain about the frequency, but every couple complains about the erotic dimension, the vitality, the energy that they hoped they would once feel, with their partners, that they're missing, that they're now missing. So where are we at on time? Did I miss? Oops. 11 minutes? Okay, because I missed the 15-minute one, so I wanted to make sure I didn't go too far. Okay. So this is good. We have 11 more minutes, so I want to give you a couple little pearls. Let's see all here, pearls. Okay. So first of all, identify for yourself. Do I have spontaneous desire more often, or do I have responsive desire more often? And if it's responsive desire, if you're not just sitting here like looking for a guy to F you, you know what I mean? If that's not how you feel right now, then you probably have responsive desire. So I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to take a breath and really enter your body and go back to a time and a place, and it may be with your current partner, it may be earlier in your relationship with your current partner, it may be with a past partner, it could be with a stranger, it could be any experience where you remember it as what I call a peak erotic experience. You were so turned on. Oh my God, this was so exciting. So put yourself back in that scene where you were so turned on and so lit up and felt so alive, sexually free. And if you can't think of one, that's okay. Just be kind to yourself and sit with that. But if you can, see if you can identify just 2 elements that made it so exciting for you. Was it the weather? Was it what you were wearing? Is it the music that was playing? Was it the kinds of textures? Was it the fact that it was taboo? You were doing something naughty you shouldn't be doing? Was it the environment? It was outside. Was it the dynamic? Was it power exchange in some way? What was it that you can now identify as, yeah, that was really hot. That aspect really made it hot for me. And again, this doesn't have to be sex. This can be when I felt really turned on. It might have been just dancing with somebody where you felt so turned on. Okay, open your eyes. And who's willing to share just an element or two so we get just some ideas about your erotic mind? I call it your red light district. Everybody has one. Go ahead.
The unknown.
The unknown. Beautiful. What's your name?
Michelle.
Michelle, thank you. So the unknown. There was something unknown. Okay, I'm going to just piggyback on that for a moment because that's so important what you just said. Okay, we have these 2 basic human needs, everybody. One is the need for security and, connection and safety. This is a basic human need we need to have. The other is basic human need for autonomy, for adventure, for growth, for innovation. We have both of these needs, the need for security, the need for adventure, the need for togetherness, the need for autonomy and independence. We have both needs. Some of us come out of our family of origin with a heightened tolerance for risk and a higher need for security. And we tend to pair with someone whose proclivities match our insecurities. So somebody who's really good with risk and independence tends to pair with somebody who's really good at connection and stability, and they make for a really nice team when they respect and love each other in this way. They both bring this to the relationship. But what happens is once couples come together, often they really get into these roles of family, Inc., and business and work, and they stop fueling the things that were so erotic that made it so exciting at the beginning. And they think, well, gee, if I'm going to have eroticism, I have to have it with somebody else because I already know this person. We've kind of done everything we could think of. There's not that, what else is there? And so, eroticism is really life-affirming energy. It's not about sex. It's not about sex toys and different positions. That doesn't really change anything. What makes sex erotic is what I like to call erotic intimacy, and that's where what we know bumps up against what we have yet to discover in our partner sexually. Okay? It's when core parts of ourselves are revealed through a sexual space. It's its own kind of language sometimes. Words aren't even spoken. The body can really convey things that words sometimes cannot. So, what happens sometimes is people get really into the security and the home and the family and the anchoring and the rules and the predictability, which is all so essential for family life. I mean, any parents in here, you need to have a routine, bedtime, boom, 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 so you don't have to work so hard. I mean, you gotta have that stuff nailed down, otherwise it's chaos. But those very things are the things that really dampen the eroticism in a relationship. So the way that you can create more eroticism in a stable, loving home environment is to consciously and intentionally infuse it with these erotic elements like uncertainty. So, uncertainty was really exciting to me. How can I bring uncertainty to my relationship with this person that I love and care about? Well, that's a really good question, because a lot of times people don't want to feel uncertainty with their committed lover or their committed companion. So, there's this thing, great, thank you. Can I want what I already have? Because if you think about the verb that goes with want, with desire, is to want, where the verb that goes with committed love is to have. So can you have what you already want, is kind of this question. And I'd like to say, this is really a paradox that we manage. It's not a problem to solve, and it really is a systemic challenge. It's in business, it's everywhere. I mean, how much of us is going to be reliable, predictable, we know what we have, and how much of us is going to be about growth and expansion and innovation, So the truth is you never really have your partner. Your partner could die, your partner could go somewhere else, and in some respects, eroticism is commensurate with the amount of uncertainty that you can tolerate in that relationship. Too much it's a breakdown. You don't want that necessarily, but it's a posture. So if I had a chair, well, just imagine me in a chair. If I had a chair like home and stability and safety and comfort and all these things, like if I had breast cancer, I'd want my husband to be right there and he would be there and I'd be there for him. That's really important, that security, and that just feels cozy, like a chair. Imagine I'm leaning back in a chair all cuddled up, my legs aren't shaved, it's great, Whereas eroticism is a totally different thing. It's like you're at the edge of your chair, you're looking out, and you're kind of like, what's next? It's uncertain. There's curiosity. That's what's erotic. So I'm going to leave you with 3 things you can do to add more eroticism to your relationship, because we're already on to one, and that is remain curious about your partner. Imagine you don't know everything about your partner, because you don't. It's an illusion to think you know your partner like the back of your pocket. I work with couples every day after an infidelity that say, who the f*** are you? I never thought you could do this. Or pulling up all these text messages. Oh, what kind of a woman? This is the woman I've been dying for. Where has she been for the last 10 years? I can't wait to blow you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what? Who are you? You know what I mean? It's crazy. Our partner shows us parts of themselves. We never fully know our partner. So a little thing you could do is remain curious. So I live with this just paradigm, like even though I've been with my partner for so long, I just imagine I know 20% of him and 80% is still to discover. And just with that paradigm, I have cognitive bias. So at least 2-3 times a week, I learn something new about him. Because he's not, predictable, I know you, like, no. I'm like, that's interesting. You do an acupuncture? Like, that's new. And people change over time, too. Because, like, when we were first married, he thought acupuncture was for the birds. And now he's talking about doing acupuncture. I'm like, interesting. Okay. So that's one thing. Another thing is to create erotic rituals, not routines, rituals. So rituals are a space that you enter to kind of be there in a sexual way with your partner with no expectations. So most people save their sexual relationship for the last thing they do before they go to bed at night. Often in a bedroom that's cluttered with like a cross of Jesus over the bed and kids and laundry, and it's not an erotic space. So one of the things I would invite you to do is come up with an erotic practice, like you do yoga, every 3 days a week to kind of connect to that. You have a ritual with your partner that you say, come, let's leave Management Inc., let's leave mom and dad, let's leave the bills, let's go into this erotic space that we create with lighting, with music, with food, with color, with clothing, that really allows us to feel sexual together and enjoy this part of our relationship together. Let's not let that go. Because fact of the matter is, a lot of people, they have plenty of eroticism, but they just redirect it into their jobs. All their creativity, all the responsiveness is going into their work or into their kids, but not into their mate. Okay? So last thing I would encourage you to do is do new things together. And this is good, final minute. So anything new where you can discover new parts of yourself and new parts of your partner. Just, hey, let's go take a walk around the block. We normally don't do that. Hey, let's try a new restaurant. We normally don't do that. Hey, let's drive home a different way. We normally don't do that. It could just be anything. Honestly, you don't have to think that hard about it. Because when you get into new spaces with your partner, you're going to learn new things about them, about him or her, So I'll end with that, but I just want to thank you all so much for being here and having me talk a little bit more about sexuality, and I think it's important, so thank you all.